Good afternoon to all our friends who join us from the Americas, and good evening to the people who are joining us from Europe. I want to welcome all of you for being here today with us, and especially I want to thank and to welcome Angela Posada, Elizabeth Lewis, Diana Restrepo, and our moderator, Dr. Edna Matta Camacho. It's a pleasure for me to have all of you here today with this special event. And it's not only special because of what you are going to tell us, but also because this will be our last event of the year, the last of more than 15 cultural events that we held in 2022 at the Embassy of Colombia in Canada as part of our public diplomacy strategy. Among those events that I was telling you about, we had gastro diplomacy, fashion, history, and now I believe that that's the expression in English. We are closing with the cherry on the top of the cake, which is all of you ladies, and we are very honored to have you here, because for our public, what you are going to see is something different, something that it's actually difficult to understand when you hear about it, but when you read it, when you learn what is this about, is so easy to feel. You don't need to understand it. You need to feel it. You need to feel it in the bottom of your heart. This is a multilingual, multidisciplinary, and an international event. And this part is especially important for me because all these remarkable ladies will show us that what we believe is really different. It's actually closer and more similar than we can imagine. And maybe this has been possible because, again, it's an all-female project, and women, instead of destroying, women create bonds. Instead of separating, women build bridges. And I have to say, we have the capacity of creating life. So the perspective from an all-female project, it's different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's only different. And this capacity of nurturing and creating life is that we are about to see here, because both the regions we are going to link, the Antarctic and the Amazonas, are the life in a pure state. And this is what all these ladies are going to show us. And I'm especially proud of having them here because, as most of you probably know, we are in the middle of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. It's a campaign from the United Nations, and precisely the color, the official color of the campaign is orange. That's why you can see all of us are wearing orange, because we believe that gender-based violence must be tackled not during the campaign, but every single day of our lives. And what they are doing is part of fighting gender violence, because there's violence in science, there's violence in arts, there's violence in all possible fields, and all these remarkable women we have today are the living proof that we can destroy that glass ceiling that has been impeding some of us to reach some of our goals. What I like about all these ladies is that they have broken that glass ceiling with their art, with their creativity, with their science, with their effort. We don't need violence to break those ceiling glasses. We need dedication, and we need all the work you are going to admire at this point. Before giving the floor to Dr. Edna Matta Camacho, a dear friend and a person that I have to say Canada and Colombia must be very, very proud, I would like to read a part of a song called Take on the World. Probably Elizabeth knows it. It's from a British group called You, Me, and I will allow myself to read only this part. It says, I am your future. I am your past. Never forget that we were built to last. Step out of the shadows and into my life. Silence the voices that haunt you inside. And just say the word. We'll take on the world. We will take on the world. Thank you, ladies. Without further ado, I leave you, Dr. Edna Camacho. Thank all of you for being here. And I have to say, ladies, that you make me and all women very proud, that especially the little girls that are seeing you, that are following you, are setting an example to all of them that everything is possible. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Monica. It's a real pleasure to be here moderating this beautiful panel. And thanks to Diego Barona and the Embassy of Colombia in Canada for this special invitation. And more importantly, for opening this space of art and science discussion around a timely topic as it is climate change, involving two essential ecosystems for our planet as they are the Amazonian and the Antarctic. And for relevant discussions, we need very important people. So it is my pleasure to introduce the speakers in the panel, I Am Your Past. Today we have three amazing women. We have Angela Posada-Swafford. Angela is a Miami-based Colombian American science and environment journalist with 30 years of experience as a storyteller in Spanish and English on all platforms. She was the first Hispanic MIT Knight Fellow in Science Journalism, author of a collection of 8 science and adventure books for young adults, reading schools in China and Latin America. Angela has been a winner of a Premio Simón Bolívar, Colombia's Top Journalist Award. She received an Emmy nomination for script writing and the Society of Professional Journalists First Prize for Investigative Environmental Journalism. Angela is a frequent guest at Colombian embassies for talks about science diplomacy. She works with several international Antarctic programs and is a recipient of the United States Antarctic Service Medal, having traveled to Antarctica for 6 expeditions. The book Ice Yellow narrates these expeditions, these trips. We have in our panel Diana Maria Restrepo. Diana is a Colombian classical percussionist, sound artist, and performer. She studied in Paris and then worked for 6 years in the Venezuelan Symphony Orchestra. For the last 15 years of her career, she has combined her art with cultural design and model and project management. Through her training as a classical percussionist with experience in experimental and contemporary music, sound has become her media for creation. She investigates multiple forms and possibilities of sound about space, the body, and the electroacoustic composition. She researches how sound inhabits the body and its relationship with language and poetics, using territory and cartography to relate to the sound. She has exhibited work internationally in countries including Colombia, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Spain, and Thailand. And our last but not least panelist is Elizabeth Lewis. She is a Norwich-based writer and teacher, currently a visiting fellow at the University of East Anglia and a part-time writer in residency at the British Antarctica Survey. She advocates for the importance of writing and storytelling in education.
I apologize. Go ahead, Doctor.
In education, and how understanding human engagement in Antarctica can deepen our understanding of our place on the planet. After many years of teaching in schools, she completed a Master in Arts and a Ph.D. at the University of East Anglia. She is engaged in many outreach projects and touring Deception Island, an immersive installation in a replica Antarctic hut based on her poem on the same name. Her first book, Deception Island, was published in 2021, and her second book, Erebus, in October 2022. Elizabeth, Angela, and Diana, it is a pleasure to have you here. We would love to hear about your project and your past, and the podium is all yours.
Thank you.
Dr. Matta, thank you very, very much for this lovely introduction. Thank you, Monica at the embassy. Thank you, Diego. I know full well how hard and with such warmth that you have worked with us. Dieguito, can you please, you are going to be our master of ceremonies. Can you please open and share with us the PowerPoint? In the meantime, I will thank you all for the interest. And I will tell you that this adventure that we're just beginning is just too big. It's like bigger than life. So this is, as you can see, a connecting point between these two ecosystems, Antarctica and the Amazonia. I Am Your Past. Why is it called I Am Your Past? It's because at some point, 100 and something million years ago, Antarctica used to be a forest, not that different from the forest that we see today. It was a temperate forest, perhaps a little bit more similar to the southern forests in Chile, but now with global warming, who is to say that Antarctica might not become a lot more than the Amazon? In any case, Dieguito, maybe we can get to the next slide. Antarctica tells the Amazon in a series of letters, I am your past, because you were once like me. As you can see here, we have two images of Guaviare. It's the beginning of the Amazon in Colombia. Look at that river, beautiful, beautiful river in the tropics of Colombia. And the ice, the sea ice, no, can you, Dieguito, please go back to the, and the sea ice in the Amundsen Sea in Antarctica. This project, what it wants to do is to connect science mediated by art, that means mediated by sounds, by videos, by poems, by letters. The Antarctic Amazon writes letters to Antarctica, and thereby there is a beautiful relationship and love story beginning, but it wants to go a lot deeper than that. Dieguito, now we can go to the next one. Thank you. As you can see, this is a science, it's an illustration produced by Science Data, showing through a very similar, very much, in other words, researchers have unearthed in Antarctica seeds and pollen from other plants that look like the ones you see here in this illustration. So this illustration is science-based. It is based on real data, real climatologic data, and real geological data. From what we know, from what researchers know, Antarctica was like. So this was also a big basis for our concept that Antarctica was forested once again, and what's going to happen in the future. It is a project that wants to call the attention to how climate change is impacting our world, and how it did in the past, and how we need to be aware but also have hope. It is going to be mediated by all these artistic pieces I mentioned, and which we are going to tell you how we did it, how we met, and how we created art. But anyway, the important thing here is that both science and the artistic conceptions and renditions are both linked. They go hand in hand. And so this is the beginning of an adventure that is going to go on probably for several years. So Dianita, can you please tell us, and Dieguito, go to the next slide, please, so that Diana can tell us how we met and how we worked.
Yes, of course. At first, I want to tell you that I will do my best with my English, so feel free to ask me if you don't understand something that I said, but I am doing my best, so I think it will be okay. So the way we met and how the project was born is a beautiful story, but I think that is very important to highlight is that the four of us are united by our concern to the environment and the certainty that the sensitive language of the art is perfect to mobilize and create awareness. I really want to highlight this because, of course, we are, you see before when with the bios, we have a video artist, a poet, a science writer and storyteller and sound art. But the thing that really unites us is the concern about the nature, about the crisis that we have now, and how we are sure that the way art can move the people.
We're moved.
Yes, is really very interesting, because we are working in a sensible language. So I think it's the most important to tell you, to say about our project. And we come from the different disciplines. Nina, Angela, and I, we work in a project in 2017 about Humboldt, and then we met each other. But then we invite Elizabeth, and yes, we are looking forward to work in this project. We think that in many years we want to do something big. So I will give the word to Elizabeth. To the next, Diego, to the next slide.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here speaking with everybody, and to you, thank you for coming. So I was very fortunate to be invited into this group of wonderful women. And the first time I met everybody in person was just before we went to Guaviare. And we had a few days together to not just to learn about the environment, but to learn about one another. We are united by our concern for the environment, but we all work in a different medium and in different ways. We were very excited. And for the first few days, we were taken to different places, and we were listening really carefully. I don't look as grumpy as that picture of me in the book. Always, I was listening, thinking, waiting to hear animal sounds and bird sounds, and we were being as quiet as possible for Diana to record. It was very, very important for us to pay attention to the details, the sounds, the senses of the world around us. But after 3 days of traveling, of recording, of taking notes, we realized that we were going too fast. We needed to slow down. We needed to share our ideas and work out how the dialogue between us would shape the dialogue between the Amazon and the Antarctic. Diego, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So what we were doing, we were looking for patterns, in the behavior of the animals, in the things that we were seeing, the shapes, the writing, not just on the rocks and the painting on the rocks, but writing in the land itself. We were looking at maps created by termites on the walls. We were looking at patterns created by erosion or by creatures in the rocks. And one of the things that we looked at was this plant, the clusia plant, which we saw in nearly every place that we went to, in all its different forms, between the seed and up to the plant. And one of the things we were thinking about was how that plant actually represented in some ways the resilience of the Colombian people. When we decided to slow down and listen to one another and to the land, we spent an afternoon thinking about communication, and we worked together on a poem called Waves. Could I have the next slide, please, Diego? In a workshop before we met, we'd thought about all the different associations of the word waves, because sound travels in waves. The waves of the sea over which ships travel also allow for communication between countries. And then this afternoon, where we sort of came together and shared our ideas, we also practiced reading and putting together the images in different languages of this poem about communication, about waves, but a poem also about what was happening to the landscape around us, because one of the threats for reduced biodiversity is the loss of sound in environments. And in this, we're going to read you very briefly just a section of the poem in which the character of the jaguar appears. The jaguar is going to be very important in our project as a spirit guide surfacing in the Antarctic in the form of ice, but will be one of the ways we connect the two landscapes. So we're going to take it in turns to read a line each. The vultures are wheeling.
En un
Diana?
cielo azul.
Perdón. As I hold you.
Waves.
Ondas.
Pulsos.
Las ondas en la piel del jaguar.
Venen auf der Haut des Jaguars.
Las ondas en el hielo marino.
Como piel de dragón.
Imagine a great jar of waves.
Bleached and scattered.
¿Qué sonidos encontrarías allá? Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? So we were thinking about communication. It's not just communication between people. It was very important to us, as I say, to listen to the landscape. And one of the exercises that we tried was talking to trees. I'd been listening to the rain falling on the leaves of trees and realized that every tree was unique and the sound of the rain falling on the leaf was different. And so our exercise was to find 7 trees, because there were 7 of us, 7 different trees that were important within the ecosystem, and then use our fingers as sounding boards, and played a pattern on the trees. I can see a video here, so I'm going to pass over to Diana now.
Diego, the video is could be after the text of Angela's text. Yes. So no, I wanted to add here that because this is a project we say that it's a project related with science, and when we were doing these exercises with the plants, I would like to say that is very, very interesting the way scientists and artists research, because of course the goal is not the same, maybe. Sometimes we don't have an hypothesis, yeah. Yes, hypothesis. But the process for us, I always tell that I like to talk with scientists, the way they research and the way we research, and this, because I think there is a very, very un aspecto intuition. Yes, you say intuition.
Yeah.
When the scientists work, and it's obvious with artists, but I think with scientists too, even if the scientists are very, very systematic, I am convinced, maybe because I am an artist, that this part of the intuition and the perception is very important. I think science without that will be very difficult. And at this moment, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience, because we were trying to feel the nature in a very different way, and we were trying to hear the plants and to experience what kind of sound, how the difference of sounds in the different leaves. So it was a very important moment in our process because, like Elizabeth mentioned before, we were like in the third day we say no, we need to stop, and we need to go very slowly because we need to feel the nature. We need to, and I will mention maybe in the next slide, but I can start mentioning now. It's like we are very, for us, it's very important, this anthropocentric position. We don't want to be there. We are not the master of the nature. We need a holistic relationship with the earth. And this moment was very important because it's not only to what I think about the plants, but what they are telling us. You know, we were in an environment, in an ecosystem that is beautiful and huge, but what we can feel, what we can listen from the plants, and what we can imagine too. Why not? So I wanted to only to add this, that it was really important. And I think, like, when I talk about science, it's only my imagination, so maybe I am wrong, but we need to find a way to work together. And this is the other challenge that we have. So this exercise was important for us because we are trying to create like a language between us. We have sound, poetry, storytelling, video, photography, but we need to understand how we need to create an universe to start to, before to dialogue with Antarctic and Amazon. We need to dialogue together too. And it was a beautiful moment for us, like very, it gave us a lot of information for the next process. Thanks. Diego, I think the next, yeah.
So one of the other things that is very important to us, looking at the rock art in this, this amazing rock art in Guaviare, we're very aware of our English, Spanish, German voices, but in the forest, there are these other indigenous voices. And it is something we want to explore and hear about, is indigenous stories of the land, indigenous interpretations of the rock art. And here you can see Diana recording a story that was told to us by one of our guides. Diana, do you want to say anything more there?
Yes, I want to add that we are very interested on the voice of the ecosystems, the voice of the Antarctic and the voice of the Amazon, but we are interested too in the voice of the people that lives in those ecosystems. So this is a very important part of our project. We want to listen to the people and yes. For example, in Guaviare, they are researching for these pictograms, and maybe a guy could tell you a story that is not 100% scientific true, you know. But we are interested on that too, on the imaginarios. How you say imaginarios?
Imaginaries, or
yes. We want to listen to the people. So it was a beautiful moment. And on the other side, I think Elizabeth mentioned before, we need to learn to listen to the nature, because it's not, it seems that it is obviously, but not. We are not used to listen. We are used to see and to relate to the view what we see to the ear, but we are not used to go to the nature and just only listen. So yeah. I try to it's beautiful because each of us give to the group something that yes, the tools, and we learn every day. So from my side, I try to make this listening experience with the collective, and it was really really important for us too, because sound is a very important part of the project too. And how, I think, only to finish my idea is, if we, like a society, if we really could listen to the ecosystem with our heart, I think we will protect the ecosystem. If each person of the world can listen into the ecosystem, to the Mother Earth, we will be more awareness and more ready to help.
Absolutely, yes. And just thinking just very briefly about indigenous peoples, there are no indigenous people in the Antarctic. We tend to think about the Antarctic, the local inhabitants of the Antarctic as the scientists who are there, or the people who are supporting the science. And it's really interesting that they are listening very attentively in a different way. They are listening with their seismographs, all their remote sensing machines. And so again, part of our dialogue is different ways of listening and paying attention to the landscape. And I think that leads us beautifully onto our next chapter and our next slide, Angela.
But maybe before the next slide, just thank you, Elizabeth. Before the next slide, so I'll just can you go back? No, just one back. Thank you. There. So my role here is as a science journalist and science writer. I bring into the fold the science of how Antarctica and the Amazon are connected. They are connected by water. They are connected by air. They are connected by geology. And they are connected by the science of the tropics. Right now is one of the hottest research areas pertaining to the poles, to Antarctica and the Arctic. So see how interesting. The tropical regions are where a lot of things are going on relating to Antarctica and the Arctic. So my job also, and my interest, is to research the science as deep as I can, and to tell it to the people, to translate it, to storytell it to audiences in such a way that it is relatable, it is understandable, and that people can see the importance. And to relate to what Elizabeth and Diana had just said, throughout my career, I write a lot about science. I write in long narrative form, but I do believe definitely that if we want to reach audiences and make sure these audiences understand and grab and enjoy, and if we want society as a whole to help support the environmental efforts to do something about what's going on climatically, we need to reach out to them intellectually and at the very same time emotionally. So this is the whole root of this project, is to get to all of you guys, children and young people and older people and the researcher and the lady who's there selling the fruit in the store. We want them all to enjoy this program and to understand why Antarctica is the way it is and what's going on with it, and why what's the relationship with the Amazon. So this is when I spend countless hours reading very complicated science data and translating it. One of the things I did, I love geology, and so I thought, isn't it interesting how the continent of Antarctica used to be placed exactly or very similarly where the Amazonia is today, and Amazonia used to be down there. So I just wanted to write it. It's a bit of a longer piece, but I will read you a very short piece called Transformations that talks about how these continents move. Now, Dieguito, thank you for the next slide. So I love the idea of change. So from tiny subatomic particles to gigantic clusters of galaxies, everything in the universe is in a state of perpetual flux. transformation, transmutation, constant flipping of energy into matter, into energy, and back into matter. Nothing stays the same. Ever since it formed 4.5 billion years ago, indomitable planet Earth has been changing. Its surface engulfed at times in lava, water, or ice. Ancient continents, from Kinorland to Valbra, Ur, Rodinia, Panotia, Gondwana, and Pangaea, floating over magma, perpetually adrift, slave to the slow stirrings of the mantle. They kiss like tender lovers, fusing the rocks of ages into one, divorce in passionate tantrums, or pass each other indifferent as strangers. Deep in the seafloor, too, they like to bury underneath one another like snakes eating their own tail, only to be reborn again in explosions of fire and ashes and molten rock. Change, constant, driving evolution in a world that never ceases to decide its own geography. So I wrote this. It was funny. I was just walking down the road here, you know, in my morning walks in the city of Cali, where I come to spend sometimes with my family. And this text just literally just came down on my head. So I had to just break and come back running and get a piece of paper and write it. So that's how it happened. Now, there is a video that Diana and Nina, our other artist, who's right now in Europe. I hope, Nina, you're watching. Actually, she's in Africa, I think. You guys worked on this beautiful video. Diana, you told us that you kind of use these words to think about the sounds for it, right?
Yes, yes. Like a sound artist, I used to do something that is a little bit weird, because normally the people who makes cinema wants to create the video with the sound, so they like to have the sound before, and I, because I am not doing this sound design, I used to propose my colleagues, in this case Nina, that we compose the piece at the same time. So it was a challenge, really, because the text was so beautiful, so so beautiful that I didn't know how to put music or sound on this text. I was like 3 weeks with this text in my head, and I couldn't start composing. And then finally something happened, like you say, Angela. The texts were there, the sound were there. I composed the piece, and at the same time Nina composed the video, and then we put together. So let's see it. I don't know if it.
We can show you guys a couple of minutes of it, right? Yeah. Okay. Dianita, so now, oh, it's Elizabeth, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I was like in the other, the other dimension.
So after I'd listened for the first time to Diana's music and looked at the video and I've read Angela's piece, I was thinking about different kinds of transformation and recalling the stories that we were told in Guaviare and thinking about the rock art. And my transformations piece, my response to this heartbeat of the land, this turbulence and change, was to tell the story of the birth of a shaman. In Serra Azul in Guaviare, we were taken into the Tepuy, the female mountain, and we were told that before a man could become a shaman, he had to spend 9 months inside the mountain, learning again to listen and to see the light. And the poem that follows combines the story of the making or the birth of this shaman with his awareness through the rocks of the story of the journey of the rocks to this place and the connection between where he is in the darkness and the Antarctic snow. And I begin with the painters who painted all these amazing images, and they've disappeared, and he is inside the mountain and it's dark. The painters have dispersed. Their marks are burning on the rock walls above the forest canopy. Inside Mother Mountain, his skin is breached by darkness, his edges dissolving into the drip of water, the soft, brief rush of bat, a memory of footsteps traveling outwards, where rain remembers smoke from fires which have cooled, voices which have scattered, ashes which have lost their fire. Cold, this point of fear which clamps him to the stone, whilst his mind dissipates and his heart slows to the pulse of earth. Birds fly out of their names, trailing lines across the air, electric with connection, calling. He is unbodied, falling from himself over the abyss, becoming wings without flight. In the forest, blood roots reach outwards, leaves sound the descent of rain. The mountain speaks a language of rending, and the drip of water becomes river, becomes sea, and he, above it and within it, a receiver of waves of sound, beating on skin, stretched with longing over eons. Continents slumbering through shifting dreams. The earth's tectonic symphonies scored in ripples and knuckles of stone, waves of sound beating on skin as flakes of light fall into the mountain like snow. Thank you. I think it's over to you, Angela.
Muy bien, Elizabeth, it's gorgeous. Yes, but then we've heard it again and again, but I don't get tired of hearing it. So this all ties in my mind to my trips to Antarctica. These are some of the images that you see. The biggest one is the South Pole, the geographic South Pole. And I just love the texture of the ice as it is carried by the winds. It has a very specific texture, the South Pole. And it has also a very specific feeling when you see this penguin comes to you for the first time. Curious creatures that they are amazing. So when I went to Antarctica for the first time was to the Geographic South Pole with the United States Antarctic program. I was the first Latin American journalist they invited, and it was incredible how my first Antarctic trip was to the very heart of the continent. But then the second time, a few years later, was with the Colombian Antarctic program, and I could not believe. No, can you go back? Yes, thank you. No, just back, one back. Thank you, Dieguito. So I couldn't believe that the Colombians had the vision of uniting the studies of the tropics with that of the Antarctic. And I had the blessing of being the reporter and chronicler on board as a science writer in this 4-month expedition by sea. So this time we went down the south of South America, and and my job was to explain the Colombians what it is that we wanted to do in Antarctica. I mean, you know, people in Colombia, as I wrote stories for our main newspaper, El Tiempo, they kept replying in their comments, what the hell is Colombia doing in Antarctica? So I had to explain to them the connections of the tropics to Antarctica. I had to explain again and again through my chronicles and diaries and science stories and reports and my own impressions, the big importance of these two ecosystems. And this is where unconsciously, I think, the very first seed of this project for me began. And then it was incredible how I found these other 3 soulmates that were thinking about the same things. It was like a convergent evolution. If you guys know about biology, where evolution creates 2 things at the same time in different places that are not related. So this is just what happened to us, to Elizabeth, Nina, and Diana, and me. So here I am in Antarctica thinking how it is that I am going to connect this to Colombia. And then when we started this program, again, this time I wasn't walking, this time I was showering and I was doing my hair. And I don't know why my best story ideas come when I am either one, walking or washing my hair. There's gotta be something in the massage. I don't know. So thank you, Dieguito, for the next slide. So I decided, okay, let's have this hypothetical thing. Why don't we establish a dialogue between the snow of the Andean Nevada del Huila? I put Huila with W because this is how the indigenous tribes have called the Huila, which is as now a volcano with a snow cap down in the southwestern part of Colombia. It is actually one of the highest volcano snow caps in Colombia, after the one in the Atlantic coast, in the Sierra Nevada, which happens to be the highest coastal range in the world. But this one is down south. And I thought, what if the snow that falls there decides to talk to an Antarctic glacier and decides to just have this conversation? And so I decided to create this series of letters between these 2. This is a story where they just meet. I will read you 2 of the first letters, and then at some point this becomes a love story where Nieve, of course, Nieve, the lady, you know, the blushing lady, they actually call this mountain the blushing mountain, because la mujer sonrojada, because it takes this texture of reddish, pinkish when the sun comes down. With this glacier, which is virile, impatient, masculine, and he just, you know, he's just down there and it's just there. And it's about to break. As you guys have heard in the news, Thwaites Glacier is, as you know, the press has called it the Doomsday Glacier, which I'm not necessarily very happy with that, with that name. But again, it is a glacier that if it goes, a lot of the snow behind it might go or will go, and it might raise the sea levels by X amount. So this story is just like the plot of what I would do in the story is the plot of the relationship of these two, what happens to them, how they meet, how they, you know, everything, but you will have to wait until the book and the exhibition comes out to know what happens. So I'm going to read to you in Spanish, even though I have it translated into English. But this is what the snow of the volcano in Colombia writes. She writes in Spanish because she's in Colombia. So she says, estimado glaciar antártico, le ruego disculpe el atrevimiento de irrumpir en su blanca existencia con mi entusiasmo tropical. Permítame presentarme. Soy la nieve recién caída sobre los altos Andes colombianos. Estoy acostada encima de los vestigios de hielo de la última glaciación que cubrió las más altas montañas andinas y africanas y que se comenzó a derretir hace 20.000 años. Ahora, con mi ayuda, este hielo envuelve los 4 picos y 6 conos de un antiguo volcán que comenzó su actividad hace 1.5 millones de años en el sur de lo que hoy es Colombia. El balcón de mi casa se asoma a montañas arrugadas que se arropan de verde a medida que van bajando hacia la espesura en la distancia. Los cóndores dicen que esos páramos y bosques albergan criaturas y plantas maravillosas que lamentablemente no he llegado a conocer. Le escribo porque si es que simplemente creo que tenemos algo en común. Usted allá con los pies cristalinos entre el mar y yo acá con la cabeza nevada besando las nubes a los 5.364 metros de altura. Últimamente he notado cambios raros a mi alrededor y en mí misma. Cosas como que ya no soy capaz de retener el blanco manto sobre mis rocas de andesita, como lo hacía antes. Es como que me estoy desvistiendo. Estoy preocupada. ¿Le pasa a usted lo mismo? Nuevamente le ruego que me perdone y un cordial saludo. Firmado Nieve del volcán nevado del Huila, Colombia. And there is a postscript. El otro día un científico se sentó a mi lado y me dijo algo extraño. Que hace 90 millones de años usted, todo su vecindario antártico, solía ser un bosque parecido al que tengo a mis pies. Con todo y dinosaurios y helechos y árboles enormes. Nunca escuché semejante locura. Eres el pasado de la Antártica, me dijo el tipo. ¿Se la habrá fumado verde, como decimos por acá? So that's the letter she writes. And then he answers. Of course he answers in English. Dear Nieve of the Colombian Andes, I must say, I was both surprised and happy to receive your letter. Surprised because I never thought anyone in the tropical mountains had any knowledge of my existence. The life of an Antarctic glacier is a solitary one, you know. I mostly get visited by noisy penguins, skuas, and seals when I fall into the ocean at the end of my voyage into the Amundsen Sea. Though I increasingly feel the presence of humans milling around, especially during the austral summer months. So, to make new friends with whom to share the beauty and boredom that surrounds me is thrilling. By the way, forgive me for writing in English. This is the first human language my molecules heard over 249 years ago when British explorers first came to take a look and then conquer, as they so endearingly say, the Antarctic. A lot of my oldest ice memory, though, is now somewhere in the sea. Therefore, it fades when trying to remember the sound of the Polynesian dialects because those ancient seafarers reached these coasts many centuries before other humans. Anyway, as you know, the winds are great messengers and simultaneous translators, and it works well. But my return messages to you need to first travel via the Humboldt Current as it runs at speedy 10 knots and then jump on the southeasterlies. Anyway, career services aside, maybe you can teach me Spanish one day? You mentioned you're worried about strange changes you notice in yourself. It so happens, I also feel weird stuff. My feet are warm, my back is cracked, and my skin falls into the sea at faster rates. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I surely don't like it. Please write back. I so long to hear about the world with your tropical enthusiasm, and the view from over 5,000 meters up must be really stunning. Sincerely, Thwaites Glacier. And he also has a postscript. So, I was once a forest. Wow. How come I can't remember? Need to learn more about this. I am your past business. Who was that scientist person anyway? I mean, are there studies to prove that? And what is it that he smoked green? I'm afraid I don't follow. So that's just the second letter, and then I bump it to you guys. I think we're nearing the last slide, maybe, to open it up. Oh, this is Elizabeth's, and then we have the last slide.
So what we are, thank you. I love your letters, Angela. They make me laugh and I learn a lot at the same time. So what we are hoping to do when we've finished our various compositions is to create an exhibition that will draw the audience into the world of these letters, this communication between Amazonia and Antarctica. And we are going to think about the model of the exhibition that I've been touring, the installation I've been touring with the Antarctic hut. This is a picture of the inside of the hut. It's a replica of a refuge hut on the Antarctic Peninsula. And the audience is drawn inside. They listen to a dramatized reading of the poem with a soundtrack, listen through headphones, look at archive footage on a film screen, which is actually where the window of the hut should be. And so they feel through all their senses the story of Deception Island, which is speaking itself in this hut. And our hope is it won't be the same hut because it's a different environment we're thinking about, but that we want to, as Diana said earlier, feel in the body as well as in the heart, and as well as communicating through the mind, and draw the audience into the world of our stories. Thank you. I think next slide.
Okay, maybe we can all chip in here, no, Dianita? Pretty much what because we know we're talking to you guys in the Arctic. We found it was especially important to make it a point to say that the Antarctica and the Arctic, as you know, they're twins, isolated, but they are separated. I'm sorry, they are united, linked by Amazonia, no? Which we have kind of envisioned as the belly button of the world in that sense. And we're not the only ones. I mean, when we were in San Jose del Guaviare, I remember we were talking a lot about the meaning of Chiribiquete and Guaviare and Mendoza for the ancient indigenous people living there. And for them, that was the belly button of the world indeed.